The Black Plateau growls and shifts restlessly in its sleep. 2 armies take the Crow Road out of Spiral. The Fire of the South and the Green Shield leave shortly after the winter solstice. 4 armies pass them in the other direction, the Towerjacks returning from their furlough in Savos. Both Imperial Orc armies, fresh from fighting the Yatoon on the Western Front, march through the pass. The Empire prepares for one final push, and the Grendel secure their positions. The Black Plateau rumbles and mutters. 33,000 soldiers raise their banners. Nearly 14,000 troops commanded by independent captains. 10,000 at least supporting the summer storm alone. 2 legions of knights called from a summer realm march with the Imperials, alongside the summer storm and the Towerjacks, bound to fight with the Empire by the same magicians of dawn who set the glorious contingent to aid their own armies in Semihome. The Imperial strategy is complex. Some strike for ossuary, others to Ankara, seeking to exploit the foothold the Empire has secured in seasons past, and the Grendel have failed to dislodge. One heads straight for Screed and... Never mind, more of that later. The Redwind Corsairs, urged to ignore the whispering of the Black Plateau, hunt living prey through the dry valleys, through the foothills, through the scrubby forests. Wealth is recovered. Prisoners captured and baggage trains are disrupted. They strike with relative impunity. The Grendel are dug in, and their ability to respond to the Corsairs is limited at best. High-value guests are relieved of their valuables and returned to their comrades for princely sums. They join once more with the Wolves of War and with the Northern Eagle, and lay siege to ossuary, pushing mile by mile towards the shining prize. The Legacy. At the same time, the Towerjacks and the Citadel Guard strike west into Ankara. The Imperial Orc armies reinforce them from Sinian. The Grendel soldiers try to stand their ground, but they're outnumbered and outclassed. In spite of the magic that grants them supernal strategic advantages, they cannot stand against what has come against them. The 4 Imperial armies crush the limited Grendel resistance, catching them and driving them east and south. Armies beneath banners of twining eels and resplendent turtles, forced to retreat before the hammer of the Empire, and into the crucible of ossuary. Ankara is liberated by the Empire. The great host does not pause, moving quickly to join their allies in ossuary. The Iron Helms... No, later. The massed forces of the Empire lay siege to the Legacy. The Grendel fight tooth and nail to keep that mithril mine. 2 weeks it takes to finally breach their defences. The eel and the turtle banner join the stone Gaia, but they're not enough. The general commanding the Orc troops refuses to give the order to retreat, it seems. It is only towards the end, when the Empire is battering down her door, that she allows her troops to flee south. If not for the intervention of the Sandpipers and the Salt Dogs, the armies would have been crushed like eggs in a vice. The slaughter is 1,000 dead Orcs. Hundreds of dead Imperials. The mithril of the Legacy is drowned in blood, stained with defeat. The Black Plateau hungers. Tides of madness and death ebb and flow. Restful sleep becomes a luxury. Fear, rage, doubt, confusion, despair. This is the currency with which ossuary is bought. What came before, what the armies who have fought here over the last year have experienced, is nothing to what comes now. But 2 regions are liberated. Thousands of Orcs dead. The Iron Helms come at last to Screed. Perhaps it was inevitable in a way. With the soldiers travel magicians from the darkest parts of Varushka. Kabbalists well versed in the arts of bargaining and the dark spirits that they've chained. They meet the Iron Gulls, supported and supplied by Marines and the Grendel Legionnaires that serve the navies. They build on the successes the Empire has already had, pushing the Orcs back towards the coast. They fight without quarter. Any Orc that falls into their hands is torn apart by dogs. They are crucified, impaled, ripped limb from limb. They've gone beyond mercy. Beyond humanity, perhaps. What began as cruelty escalates quickly. They are in the shadow of the Black Plateau. Their actions call to it, and it answers. A circle of power begins to flow. Hate begetting hate. Fear feeding fear. And the Black Plateau rouses. Into the shadow of the Black Plateau the Iron Helms come. There, as the sun sets, the Kabbalists begin to weave their magic, bolstered by the knowledge that they have the full support of the priests and the generals. They draw on old pacts. They call to the shadows beneath the trees of distant Smirkarova and Volodmarts, on the blackness that waits beneath the hills of Karsk and Karov. They draw it to them, streamers of cold, hungry darkness. And then they turn it loose upon the Grendel. At the moment their rite is completed, every living thing in Spiral knows it. The presence of the Black Plateau is suddenly impossible to ignore. From Ankra to Apulus, every single thinking being is suddenly absolutely aware of the location of the Black Plateau. Heads snap round. Sleeping soldiers jerk awake. The fighting pauses. There is a moment of absolute silence that seems to stretch timelessly. And then everything snaps back into focus. Yet everyone in the territory, human and Orc, is left with a profound awareness of the Iron Helms. They know where they are, and they know every time one of them slaughters an Orc. Every time they tie a captured prisoner between two saplings and let them be torn in half. Every time they burn a Grendel merchant alive. Every time they set their dogs on Orcs desperate to surrender. Every time they break the legs of a scout and tie them still living to the gibbet for the crows to feast on. It is bad enough for the Imperials. It's hard to imagine how terrible it must be for the Grendel. If the Black Plateau was restless before, the intensity of the dreams and visions it brings seem to double over the next few nights. It becomes harder and harder to tell what is real and what is a phantasmagoric hallucination. Supplies of Lao run dangerously low as soldiers desperately seek the solace of anointing. But the violence, if anything, escalates even further. Only the Redwind Corsairs and the Walls of War seem capable of remembering what quarter is, perhaps thanks to the tenor of their orders. Those Imperial soldiers whose generals have urged them to give in to the power that is loose in Spiral, to cut the Grendel down, to take revenge, to hate. They revel in it, in the slaughter. The worst of the Orc armies and the Tower Jacks, who begin to echo some of the atrocities of the Iron Helms. But the Citadel Guard and the Northern Eagle likewise begin to seek out opportunities to slake their thirst for blood on these Orcs. For their part, the Grendel match the Imperial ferocity blood for blood. They fall back, but it is clear their generals are struggling to keep them under control. They stand and fight when they should retreat. The black eels and the brine turtles seem the least affected, but their relative discipline is more than made up for by the salt dogs, sandpipers, and the stone Gaia. The Iron Helms take Reid. The Grendel there retreats south and east, some to the fortified port of Apulian, some to the southeastern border, to Apulus, to rendezvous with the forces driven south by the main bulk of the Imperial armies. There, on the lower slopes of Apstrus, in the shadow of Solon's doubt, the final battle of the season is fought. It is carnage. Absolute. A frenzy of bloodletting, of savagery, unspeakable, indescribable. The salt dogs break first, turning on their own officers in their frenzy to escape. As they fragment, a panic runs through the Grendel ranks like wildfire. The sandpipers break next, abandoning their positions and cutting through their own baggage train in their madness. The stone Gaia try to turn them back, and within moments the two Grendel forces are at each other's throats. Madness, chaos reigns. Those generals still in command of their troops, led by the cool heads of the black eels and the brine turtles, begin to sound the retreat. The stone Gaia refuse. The madness is in them. The terror of the iron helms has unhinged their reason. They charge the imperial lines and are cut to shreds. It is impossible to tell what is happening. Human and orc bodies lie in drifts. The dead and the dying commingled, trampled by both sides in the confusion, and then the Black Plateau wakes up. Everyone fighting in the shadow of Solon's doubt knows the exact moment when it happens. It is as if a pressure has been building, unfelt, unheard for the last year, and suddenly it has been released. There is a sound, a sensation of movement, of overwhelming nausea. Every dark thought, every painful memory is suddenly brought to the fore. Roughly 500 Imperials, including all the Kabbalists who rouse the terror in the night, go mad or die in that instant. Their minds or their hearts breaking into shards. The Battle of Solon's Doubt ends in that moment. The commanders on both sides desperately pull their armies apart, but it is no easy task. The bloodlust reigns supreme, and it is not just it, the enemy. Every slight, every little niggle, every suspicion is let loose in a flood as the Black Plateau becomes ascendant. Soldiers who have bickered in the past will steal against each other, and not every dispute is rational or real. One soldier stabs another in the back, shouting incoherently about an imagined infidelity. Others break and flee, howling like beasts. Their reason fled. The elfin knights fighting alongside the Summer Storm and the Tower Jacks depart en masse. They retreat north in as much disarray as the Imperial armies, and withdraw almost immediately to the nearest Summer Regio, where they depart the mortal realm. Those who saw them leave say that they were pale and brittle, confused and afraid, uncertain, profoundly uncertain, and full of doubts. The Black Plateau is awake. The Empire withdraws its forces to ossuary, leaving the remaining Grendel in control of Abstrus and the southern coast. After the initial surge of madness, the power of the plateau recedes a little. But nobody in Spiral is left in any doubt that it is awake, whatever that means. Everyone knows exactly where it is, a weight on the skein of their perception. Looked at directly, it is the same as it has always been, seen from the corner of the eye, and in dreams. It is the centre of a howling Gaia of hatred and despair, a whirling column that reaches up into the clouds, churning ceaselessly. The Empire controls Spiral, technically, at least. They have conquered Ankara, Ossuary, and Screed. Along with Sinian, they now own Spiral. They have also recaptured the Legacy, the mithril mine in Ossuary. Around 2,000 Imperials are dead, as compared to perhaps as many as 6,000 Grendel orcs. Many are unaccounted for, scattered in the moment that the Black Plateau awoke. The Grendel have lost 3 whole armies to the terror of the Iron Helms and the merciless ferocity of the Imperial armies. And the Black Plateau is awake. Game information. The Empire controls Spiral. 3 Grendel armies have been disbanded. The Black Plateau is awake.